software testing. You were going to share with us
Right.
some of your status thoughts and what brought this concept to, is bringing it to fruition.
From my experience, software
Yes.
testing is huge.
Okay.
And it's an area that I have a lot of experience in. I think, Art, you can agree, it's heavy in the industry, but when it comes to academics, you really don't see programs that focus on software testing. In terms of academics, we at Metro and in the info department are kind of leading that.
Welcome to another episode of Office Hours. My name is Art Brown, Dean of IT at MCC. Thank you to our listeners and viewers. I want to welcome today Sue Yee. Sue is one of our newest faculty members at MCC in the IT department. Sue, glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Art.
Thank you.
I started just last June.
Yep.
So
happy to
it's
have
really
you.
good to be here.
Yeah. So Sue, tell us, share with our audience a little bit. I usually start with telling me a little bit about your background, what got you into IT, some of that work experience, and then, you can start education to work, and then what led you to IT, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I guess I could start kind of during my childhood. I didn't necessarily grow up with my parents. They were very busy. So the person who was more of my father figure was actually my uncle. And he's been in IT for decades, since the military and all of that. And I guess just growing up, it kind of fell into my hands, and tinkered around with the computers that he had, down in his basement. And growing up, kind of running into some HTML and CSS, and liking that kind of creative aspect. And by the time I hit college, like so many people, not exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I know I had that interest. Kind of that balance of what can I do that's analytical but still creative. And UNO at the time recently started their IT innovation program. And so I looked into that and kind of fell into that. And before, I was thinking, okay, there's this creative program, and they focus a little bit more on entrepreneurial aspects, like creating a business plan, thinking of ideas, ideation, and all of these components. And so I was sitting there thinking, okay, what can I do to add more of the technical component, building things out and getting into things like web development, going back to that kind of spark for HTML and CSS and website building. And so starting with that, I took a very introductory web development course at UNO. And then I thought, okay, it's challenging. I'm going to keep going. I was doing okay. And then started taking more intensive programming courses. I did struggle, but I really enjoyed the challenge of taking those courses. I also struggled in math, but again, I appreciated the challenge. And so I kept going. And through that whole experience, not mentioning the internships, but through education alone, having that interest in the creative and technical balance that I was kind of looking for. But I forgot to mention, when I started, I did get an internship in IT. And I will say that was not so much containing that creative component, but it was technical, It was in social engineering, so that's kind of more alongside the networking stuff,
Right.
which at this point I don't really mess with too much, but it was still a good segue into programming and scripting and PowerShell and everything like that.
Okay.
So I had that internship for about 11 months, and then I shifted to an internship that focused a lot more on Python automation. And I was doing that for 2.5 years. And that was essentially the rest of the time during my undergraduate. And after I graduated from my undergrad, I really intensively got into full stack development, web development, mobile and hybrid and all of that. So
Right.
that was, I think, the start of where I was actually able to practice the technical and the creative component of IT from the very start.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want me to keep going, but
No, that's good.
yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
So what I take from that, Sue, is you had the perseverance is what stands out with me. So through your undergrad career experiences and educational, sounds like you maybe had some challenges, but I think that's great that you can share that life experience with our students at MCC, that, maybe things don't always come as easy as we might like, but the fact that you persevered, you completed your undergrad coursework, graduate student, had some real world experience, and you're bringing that knowledge and experience to our students at Metro, which I think is invaluable. So that's what stands out with your introduction to me. So is that a good summary of what
It
I
is,
heard you say? Yeah.
and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I do connect with the students, and having that perspective that they have in mind is, okay, I'm coming into it's this programming stuff, and it's really intimidating, and
Right.
they often have no idea how to approach it. And I also took many years of classes at Metro, and that certainly helped. Also, just knowing how to approach not only the field, but these courses.
Right. And I forgot, I'm glad you mentioned it. You made me remember that, your journey started here at Metro, and it's kind of coming full circle now that once a student, now you're taking and teaching, you've taken classes and now teaching classes to our students. So kind of a full circle moment. So
Yeah, it's really heartfelt when I have high schoolers in my class, and I remember when I took, a class like Intro to Psychology, classes like that when I was 16, and yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, looking back, and it's all
Right.
coming full circle.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So forgive me and the audience, we kind of jumped in and I didn't really give a context for this episode. So this series of our first episodes are focused on just getting to know our faculty, some of our program leads, and a few key faculty members. Also, the next leading question I'll have is, can you tell us a little bit about what areas of focus you're teaching here currently at Metro? And then we'll get into some other related questions about some of the projects and cool things you're working on for us here at the department. So let's start with, can you share with us, Sue, tell us what you're teaching now, some of the experiences you've had early on. I know you're relatively new into your teaching career with us, and let's start with what you're teaching now, please.
Yeah, so I teach a variety of courses at Metro, which I think is very reflective of my whole experience in IT.
Okay.
I dabbled in a lot of different areas, anywhere from PowerShell to Python to web development to some basic hardware stuff.
Okay.
And so I teach the Intro to Information Technology course, which covers all sorts of areas. It, is a very introductory course. I also teach the Intro to Problem Solving and Programming course, which is Python based.
Okay.
Really excellent introduction to programming in general.
Right.
And from there, I teach JavaScript, and recently created a TypeScript class.
Yep.
And I also teach React and the web framework version and the native mobile development version. And recently took on the software testing and automation area, and that has now been approved
Yes.
to be a full-on certification and pathway.
Yes, and I'm
And
super
so,
excited.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
talk,
it's
and we're
going to be
gonna,
really cool.
yeah, so we're gonna definitely talk more about that one. Of those classes you mentioned now, share with me and the audience. Like, I know you and I talk all the time offline. What is there any one or series of classes that you find the most enjoyable to teach and share with our students?
Yeah, I definitely have a knack for programming. So I also have a special place in my heart for Python because when I was in my undergraduate, it was again a challenge, and most of those courses were Java based. And being a young woman in tech, I didn't know who to necessarily go for, and all my peers, or most of my peers, were males, and so I was thinking, am I kind of in imposter syndrome? Am I in the right place? Can I even learn this? Am I going to be good enough? And so after I graduated, a lot of the projects that I took on when I was doing full stack development were Python based, JavaScript based. So it has a special place because
Gotcha.
I was able to become proficient and be really good at it. And so switching languages really taught me all of those things, breaking down the imposter syndrome and
Right.
raising my confidence. So I really, really like teaching the problem solving and programming course.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've got me thinking. I've already got a list of questions in my mind I want to ask, but you're going to make me deviate a little bit. So let's talk about the imposter syndrome piece. So, a female in this space, it's a male-dominated industry. When you encounter your students in your class, what do you do to encourage them to persevere, be persistent like yourself? What can you share maybe some of those conversations or any type of mentoring role you might take on?
I think there are several things I can say to that, but in general, in all of these classes that do seem presented as intimidating, I try to just structure the class in a way that's interactive so that they get peer support, and also that the grading isn't a big focus so that they're not thinking, I'm going to lose points just because
Right.
of this little thing in my code that I still don't understand, and they might be halfway through the course
Right.
and struggling with basic concepts. And I also tell them it's not about necessarily getting the right syntax. It's important
Right.
because it's a Python-based course, but I try to emphasize what you want to take out of this is, and what the industry actually looks for is, how can you adapt to different frameworks? And so I try to focus more so on the problem-solving aspect of it,
Okay.
and just tell them, hey, you're trying to become proficient in problem solving and thinking like a programmer, but there's just this added language piece to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I'm curious, do you, kind of carrying on that theme, help me, Sue, remind me, you've been here 2 years, right? Almost 2 years now, I think?
Starting the second year.
You're in
So
the
I
second year,
finished a
see.
full year and
Gotcha.
starting the
Okay.
second.
So I'm rushing you. Yeah. So you're in the year 2 now. Can you recall any instance of maybe a student pulling you aside, asking you either directly or indirectly to provide some mentorship or leadership or just words of encouragement to allow them to persist? Any specific scenarios you can mention or recall?
Yeah, so for one, specifically in the classroom, I really encouraged, again, the peer support, but I try to walk around in the classroom session itself, and I try to look at their code and make it feel more one-on-one and say, hey, you're doing a good job,
Right.
and you have the right idea, keep going, and you're close, and all of these things. And I have offered direct mentorship, and several students have really appreciated it. Have they, necessarily reached out? No, but I can also be more proactive in that. But it's, kind of that balance of,
They have to want it.
They do have to
Yeah,
want it. So
right. Gotcha.
yeah, I
Okay.
do offer
Okay.
mentorship in that
right.
sense.
Gotcha. Well, along that same theme, can you maybe recall an instance of a moment of satisfaction that you've had with, you delivering a course lesson or just experience to students that has stood out with you during your first year heading into year two?
Yeah, actually, so today's Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday was the career
Yes.
IT fair,
Yes.
and a student came, and they've been taking my online JavaScript and React classes, and they kind of set me aside and asked some professional questions, but then after wanted me to look at their web development portfolio, which is incredible because it was solely all based off of those classes that they
Wow.
took.
Cool.
And I was really impressed. The animations, the design elements, the consistency, the cleanliness, and how it just worked.
Right.
Aside from small, responsiveness issues.
Right.
Yeah, just kind of seeing that from a teacher mentor perspective, and really seeing that what I was teaching really helped them. And they were a student that didn't necessarily have the best grades, but they really, really tried.
Right. And that's got to be rewarding that, maybe from an academic grade perspective, you didn't see what we had hoped, but, applying the skills are what's most important. And, in a perfect world, letter grades can be, they are what they are, but, applying the skills, in my opinion, is equally, if not more important. So that's got to be cool. Good.
Yeah,
good.
it was cool.
Gotcha. Okay. So, well, cool. So you've given us a couple great examples of your leadership, your mentorship. You and I have spoken offline about some of the goals I've wanted to help set for the department. Keeping in line with that theme, you're working on developing or have developed a club for women in tech. Can you share with us some of the status and where we are with that club right now?
Yeah, so the club is called Women Who Tech, wanting to make it not just being in tech, but as a part of their identity.
Okay.
And it's open to anyone who's an MCC student, so even faculty, MCC students, but also faculty and staff can get involved. And we have about 25 registered members on the MCC My Hub page.
Gotcha.
Very exciting. And we also have 3 partnerships with 3 high schools who have their own respective Girls Who Code clubs.
Okay.
And
Do you mind sharing the high schools with us? Or?
Omaha North,
Yes.
Buena Vista, and Gretna.
Great. Cool.
Very exciting. And we just sort of kicked off in the spring.
Okay.
There have already been some leadership changes because, students sign up to be officers and
Right. Yep.
they graduate. And so,
Right.
we just found a new rotation of officers. And so we're excited to start some events starting in October, November.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Cool.
One thing about the club that I do want to emphasize is it's not just for women, but it's also intended for binary and trans individuals,
Okay.
creating that space for them as well.
I'm excited to hear that. It's just broadening the reach of IT and sends a message to the community that anyone can do this with the right desire, leadership, and mentorship. So that's very cool. Let's talk a little bit about, do you have like a sample of some activities, events that you all will be doing in the coming months that you can share with the audience?
For next month or this upcoming November, we're planning to schedule a tour over at the Center for Advanced and Emerging Technology.
Okay.
Getting a tour of their
Right.
prototype lab and
Gotcha.
getting a demo of the 2 robots that they have.
Gotcha.
But hopefully doing some more kind of balancing of hardware and software and
Okay.
the 3D printing and working with the Raspberry Pi and maybe doing some programming activities. But
Gotcha.
my goal for the club is to have some sort of mentorship program in place for the students who are involved in the club,
Right.
and networking and conference opportunities.
Gotcha. Speaking of which, you're jogging my memory. So can you share, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I know you and I have spoken offline about having a Skills USA component to your club. Do you have anything you could share with the audience on that? I guess my stretch goal for you on that, if you could.
Right now, most of the members who are involved, we're trying to figure out availability. Many of them are working mothers, and so just trying to find if that
Feasible.
time
You're right.
works
Yep.
and where within Skills USA that they could fit.
Gotcha.
But it's definitely something that's on the table.
Gotcha, for
Yeah.
sure. And for our audience, I'm making assumptions. Can you, to the best of your ability, share with the listeners and viewers what Skills USA is and what impact it has both at high school and collegiate level? And I'm putting you on the spot here. If you can recall, I know we're not doing a commercial for Skills USA, but just a high level summary for anyone that may not know what this is and what it encompasses.
From my perspective, what I know about Skills USA is they're very involved in starting at the high school level, clubs that they are able to compete and showcase their skills in a variety of technical areas. That could be anywhere from video to programming, hardware skills, and so on and so forth. And there is a local competition, and with that, they can go to the state level, and then there's a national competition.
Yep. And so, for the audience, the goal is I've given Sue and a few other staff, faculty, let's, our IT department needs to be in this space. I know from the college level, a lot of our colleagues with our vocational trades area, they are heavy competitors and they represent the college very well. And so I'm challenging Sue and a few staff and faculty, let's make sure our team, our academic area is represented. We do some really good things, and another opportunity for us to showcase the work that yourself and other faculty do to let students shine in a more public setting. So,
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And Skills USA is really huge at MCC.
Right.
And hopefully we
will
in
be there.
info can be up there too.
We should
Yeah.
be, absolutely. So, so I think we had digressed a little bit, but let's shift gears. Software testing. You were going to share with us
Right.
some of your status thoughts and what brought this concept to, is bringing it to fruition.
Yes. From my experience, software testing is huge.
Okay.
And it's an area that I have a lot of experience in. And it's interesting because I think, Art, you can agree, it's heavy in the industry, but when it comes to academics, you really don't see programs that focus on software testing or QA, or
Right.
there's a lot of different names it goes by, but software testing in general.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of academics, we at Metro and in the info department are kind of leading that
We are.
and really,
Yes.
really sparking. So I'm excited
I'm
to
excited
see
too. Yeah.
where it goes. But the program, we have interviewed a couple people, and I don't know if you want me to share the names or
It's probably not.
we have interviewed some
Yeah.
industry partners who
Right.
are pretty big in Omaha, and given the feedback, we have created a software testing certification program and creating a few new courses based on that feedback from the industry partners.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I'll just add, I just want to reiterate, since we have a, public audience listening, I think it's key for, community members to hear, like, what does it look like for Metropolitan Community College to create, update, and maintain curriculum? And I think this is the most important element, how we engage our community partners. We actually listen to what they're telling us as far as what are the industry needs and demands, and acting and putting this into place. So maybe just kind of, if you maybe take a little step deeper for the listeners or viewers, how does that, what did that engagement look like? And I know you led a lot of those conversations in a group setting with myself, and then you had one-on-one meetings with several of those employer partners too. If you could, I'm saying it all, but if you can add anything more to how that process evolved. So.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is it's really cool that we do get to develop curriculum that is really based off of the industry.
Right.
But in terms of the process, the leads that you had really helped me in that process. But, just reaching out and having individual meetings with those stakeholders separately
Right.
and getting feedback and kind of looking at what in general, kind of deducing what they're saying. And for me, at least, I repeated that process and met with the other industry partners individually.
Right.
And then at the end of that, looking to see if there's similarities and differences and why, and asking further questions or developing further questions about that, and then bringing them all together in one meeting, in addition to key faculty members who are relevant and could have additional expertise in helping
Right.
ask questions, and having them have discussions together about what technologies they're using, what processes and frameworks, and going from there.
Right. And that part is important too. So the collaborative piece, you're right. I mean, you let the discussions engage the partners. You work with our internal colleagues, faculty that were stakeholders in this space, and which reminds me of a couple things. I know you're bringing in a couple of at least one of our adjunct members that's working in this space now, and he's going to help you with some of the curriculum development components of it. Anything you want to add more about? I feel like I'm leading the questions.
I will say, if this adjunct instructor is watching this
Yes.
episode,
Let's give him a shout out. Yeah.
I will give a shout out. You are amazing, and it's been incredible and super fun to work with you.
Gotcha. Let's say his name. We need to say his name.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was confidential,
Yeah.
but Alex Shaw,
Yep.
who, can I say the
You can,
company?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, he is at Mutual of Omaha.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
So shout out to Alex
Yep. Big
Shaw.
shout. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. Cool. Let's see. Let me think here. So we're having some good conversation. Let's talk about again, year into your teaching profession with us. Any epiphanies? Like you had some memorable moments. You mentioned one yesterday. Anything else you could share with the listeners or viewers about, hopefully your love and passion of teaching here at Metro? We want you to stay here for a while. What can you share?
I'm definitely staying for a
Good,
while.
okay.
I love teaching. I always had this feeling that I would enjoy it,
Okay.
and it's proved true.
Gotcha.
But in general, Metro I feel like treats me really well,
Okay.
and I really respect that and appreciate that.
Good.
But I've gotten really into and really interested in teaching and pedagogy in general.
Good.
IT related or not. And
Gotcha.
so I've been researching and reading up on
Gotcha.
pedagogy and,
Yep, for sure.
and trying to make my classes interactive when it comes to programming, which can traditionally be often like you're just looking at blocks of code and you're trying to learn from this dry textbook.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of fun and a lot of work, but each quarter I try to tweak my lessons and try to make it better and more interactive. And that it makes it fun for me too,
Cool.
like in the
Keeps you
classroom.
engaged.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's a couple more questions. Let's talk about, so what do you do, Sue, to stay current? I mean, IT is the only constant has changed, is I think a fair statement. What personally do you do to stay relevant and current with the topics that you're teaching or been assigned to teach?
Yeah, it's really interesting because with my students and in the classroom, I start by asking them an interesting or fun question. And so that way, that's a way for me to learn not only their perspective, but anything that they find like interesting and saw like on the internet.
Okay.
And so that's one way. That's also a way that I have my online courses. There's a discussion and they talk about a relevant IT topic. Lately, it's been a lot of AI,
Yes.
but that is another way that I'm learning. But I'm developing a new course and very soon developing 2 new courses. So in that process alone, staying relevant and doing my research and due diligence on
Gotcha.
what's current. But even if I wasn't
Mhm.
creating a new course, I would still undergo that same process.
Gotcha. Can you be specific? Do you have any like go-to resources, or like what is your methodology for, let's say there's something new and emerging. You mentioned AI. What do you have like any set of go-to sources that you use for upskilling or just maintaining your professional level of knowledge?
Yeah, I am subscribed to Medium, which you it's free to start, but you do pay a little fee
Hmm.
to be able to read more articles. But I actually subscribe to some subreddits,
Okay.
like the React.js one, and
Hmm.
it's good to actually get the public opinion on things.
Right.
And that's where I've learned all of these different frameworks. And I am aware of them, but I don't want to go into rabbit holes
Right.
with all of these technologies that are
Right.
constantly evolving
There's so
and
many. Yeah, for sure.
competing in popularity. So I'm
Gotcha.
aware of these things, but
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
it's a different story if you're talking about if it's something I have tinkered around with.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of gotcha. Fair enough. Okay, let me think here. I'm just trying to jog my memory. Let's see. I feel like we've covered everything I wanted to hit. So, just a pleasure to have you here today. Do you have any closing thoughts or comments you can share with our audience about, where you are? Let's talk. Maybe I'm jogging my memory here. Where do we see IT education and just IT in general? Maybe 1, 3, 5 years out. You mentioned AI. Obviously a lot of buzz. Globally about the impact of generative AI and education, or any final thoughts on any of those sub elements I just mentioned?
Yeah, well, first, I am curious, Art, asking you, since
Okay.
you've been in
All right.
education
Okay.
and here at Metro for
Mhm.
many years,
Mhm.
how you also stay current
Good
with
question. Yeah,
the
yeah. Put me on the
topics.
spot. Yeah. So actually, Reddit is one. I'm a
Okay.
big user of Reddit. I kind of follow a few channels. So the React channels I do follow
Oh,
a
okay.
couple. Yeah. So Reddit is probably one of my biggest ones. Just a couple others. Reddit is by far probably the number one.
Yeah.
I follow several channels there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have more specific. I read a lot of articles. Don't get as much
Yeah.
time as I would like to dig deeper, but at least trying to stay current in those general areas so I know what's happening in our space and can have some intelligent conversations with our faculty, staff, and community
Right.
partners for sure. So, yeah, okay, you put
That's
me on the spot a
cool.
little bit. Okay,
That's
that's
cool that the
good.
Reddit was
Yeah, no, I do
similar.
use Reddit. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
Gotcha. Yeah. Again, back to you real
Yeah.
quick. Any thoughts or visions on where as IT as evolving, where do we see future of IT and what impact it has on education?
Well, definitely,
Hmm.
it's not a surprise
Hmm.
that AI
Hmm.
is a big conversation
Hmm.
from the teacher's side
Hmm.
and the student side
Hmm.
and a developer's side.
Right.
So it's very interesting how
Hmm.
that conversation's evolving and
Hmm.
where it's gonna go and
Right.
how it's gonna get integrated or
Hmm.
not.
Yes.
And so I'll just leave it
That's
there,
fair.
but I
Yeah.
would agree that that's probably one of the biggest topics
Right.
right now.
Seems to be, yeah. We're having
Yeah.
a lot of, as you know, a lot of discussions internally about does AI have a place in education, and if so, how and to what degree? So a lot of, at least internally, we can attest to, where do we go and what should we be doing or not doing or not allowing students to do using generative AI. So yeah, very interesting time in general, I would say. Well, Sue, thank you, thank you. I
Thanks, Art.
am glad to have
Yeah.
you here. I know we look forward to. My goal is to have our with this podcast series. Getting to know our faculty was our first phase, and then definitely you're leading our Women Who Tech Club, and you're going to be doing some other things. I know. So my goal is to have you back in the future and let you talk a little bit more about those other initiatives as they start moving forward. So.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
definitely love to be back
Gotcha.
on
We'll
the
probably,
podcast.
yeah, and more I'm thinking about it, your student participants on the Women Who Tech Club will definitely have them join as well as some of the other projects.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
so
Yeah.
give them a heads up. We'll be reaching out to them for
Yeah, I
sure.
definitely will let them know.
Gotcha. Well, Sue,
But
thank
yeah.
you, and thanks to our audience for viewing and listening. Sue Yee, faculty here at MCC, we want to thank you and glad to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Art.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool.